Starfield wasn't a terrible game. I just think it was a very mediocre game that should have been way better. And that's the real problem, because now if they do another sequel to Starfield, because I know Todd Howard wants to make it into a franchise, they gotta make it right. This is Bethesda's chance to prove they still know how to make a great RPG. And I know we're probably years and years and years away from Starfield 2 if they ever make it, because they gotta go through Elder Scrolls 6 and the next Fallout, but I know it should come out because I would love to see a great space exploration, because Starfield had everything on paper. It has like space exploration, it has hundreds of planets, full freedom, but it somehow still feels empty. And that's why it sucks. So instead of just complaining about it, I want to talk about how a potential Starfield 2, a Starfield sequel, whatever they're going to call it, could actually fix the franchise and become the game that people thought we were going to get the first time. But before we get into that, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames. We do anything gaming news, reviews, and analysis and playthroughs. So if you like that style of content, make sure you subscribe and join the Legion. We're almost at 1,700 subs, and I would love for you to enlist now, subscribe, and join the Legion, and then comment down below what other games you would like to see me play or talk about. I'm always open to suggestions. Anyways, back to the video. I want to talk about the biggest issue I have with Starfield. So Starfield was supposed to be this big space exploration type of game with a lot of planets to discover and a lot of meaningful quests. It's supposed to be like a sandbox like Skyrim, but in space, like a No Man's Sky but better, with a little bit of Mass Effect, sprinkled in, good storytelling, good quests, a lot of factions, a lot of things to do. But that was the biggest issue, because exploration in Starfield feels sort of pointless. There's too many planets and not enough meaningful content to cover the huge span of, places you could go in Starfield. It was as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle, because they had a lot of copy and paste locations and a lot of planets where it's just plains and really nothing to go and nothing to look at. It was really boring. It was a boring game. So if they make a Starfield 2, they need to go smaller but deeper. I'd take quality over quantity any day when it comes with Bethesda. I don't care if the map is smaller. I don't care if there's not like hundreds and hundreds of planets you could go to. I'd take like 1 or 2 systems and have, maybe like 6 planets you could go to per system, or even less. I want more handcrafted locations, maybe a planet where you could fully explore and go deeper into it and have unique discoveries that actually reward curiosity. Because if you think about games like Skyrim, every cave felt like it had a purpose, it had a story. Even if there was really nothing inside, even if it felt like a copy and paste cave, there were notes and stuff you could find inside. But in Starfield, it's just a lot of emptiness. Starfield had a lot of scale, but it had no reason to explore that scale. You would just do the quests and go where it told you to go. There was no incentive to actually do whatever you wanted to do unless you were super into it. And another thing is, you have to fix the travel system. No more loading screen simulator, because Starfield really was a loading screen simulator. You would go to a menu to click a planet, then it was a loading screen. You land, a loading screen. You would enter a building, a loading screen. I mean, this is 2026, and it's gonna be like years and years, probably like in the 2030s when Starfield 2 comes out, and this kills immersion. You need seamless space travel. You need manual landing and takeoff when you're in your spaceship, something like No Man's Sky, or at least the illusion of it, and a less reliance on menus. It seems like Bethesda is stuck in the past. They're not fixing what even Bethesda's Oblivion had problems with. I mean, come on, like, it's been so long and they're not even fixing that. Even if it's partially faked, it really still needs to feel connected, because now the universe doesn't feel like a universe. It just feels like separate levels, and it's like, come on, that's one of the biggest things that I was so disappointed with Starfield, because I thought that it would have been fixed by now. But maybe that's my bad, because Bethesda has shown us they're not willing to learn, or they're not willing to improve for the better. And I was a fool to think that Starfield was gonna be any different. But anyways, let's get back on track. Starfield could also use better NPCs in writing. Now, remember Skyrim and Oblivion, and those games where every NPC sort of had a name. Other than those generic soldiers or guards, every little townsfolk had a name. Even if they didn't have any importance, they just had static dialogue talking about whatever, or you couldn't even open up like a dialogue option or a dialogue wheel with them, right? They still had a name and they still had a personality, but we kind of digressed from that. In Fallout 4, you started to have these like settlers, right, that had no names, no personality. They had the same, reused the dialogue. And then you go to Starfield now, and you have the NPCs with the same problems and even worse. There's stiff dialogue, there's weak emotional moments, and there's choices that don't really matter, even with the major NPCs. Bethesda used to be known for having, cringy NPCs, but they were still good. They still had life. They had that schedule. In Starfield 2, they need more reactive NPCs. You need stronger companions. We don't need those lifeless ones, people that nobody cares about. Actually give them a story, give them good romance, give them good anything that builds characters and gets players to care about them, and have real consequences for decision. They should follow sort of like a Baldur's Gate template with the companions, and you could have sort of like a Baldur's Gate but with like an action, a Western RPG. That would be cool. Players should feel like they're a part of the world, not just walking through one and having static NPCs everywhere. This needs to be fixed in the next Starfield game. Not even the next Starfield game, even Elder Scrolls 6. Every Bethesda game from now on should have really good NPCs that breathe life into the world and not just sit there and do nothing. They need to learn from these top RPGs, especially from Baldur's Gate. And on top of that, this might just be my opinion, but I feel like Starfield's combat needs an identity, something to make it look different than other games. I mean, the combat itself is fine, but I feel like that's the issue with me. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it's not really that memorable either. I feel like Starfield 2 needs to lean into something like with more impactful gunplay, have better enemy variety, and have actual unique abilities that actually change gameplay. And that whole Starborn thing really feels like Bethesda really just ripped off Skyrim's Dragonborn, their own game, right? They're taking what made them great in the past and just doing it 100 times worse, and I'm just like, come on. It really feels like a generic shooter inside an RPG. It needs its own identity. And this might be another big point too. Bethesda needs to stop playing Starfield safe. Nothing about it feels bold or risky. Starfield needs to be something that is very innovative. For Starfield 2, you need to actually add maybe a darker tone or more unique themes that people don't expect. Don't be afraid to take risks with stories, because safe games don't get remembered. They're just like thrown in with every other thing. You need to pioneer and do something better for the franchise, better for yourself, better for the genre. And Starfield just doesn't hit that mark. Hopefully the next game will. Starfield 2 doesn't need to be bigger. It just needs to be way better, because the foundation is already there. The theme is already there. People love sci-fi stuff. Mass Effect shown that it could be done really, really good and be very amazing. It just needs direction. And if Bethesda actually listens to us, Starfield 2 could go from one of their most disappointing games and franchises to one of the absolute best. But that's just my take on it. Obviously, Starfield 2 is years and years and years and years into the future. You might ask, why am I even talking about it now? It's because I have so much passion for Bethesda games. I want to just talk about what could go right with Starfield. You could even see this as what went wrong with Starfield 1 and how we could improve for the future. But anyways, whenever that comes out, probably not even in the next 10 years, because this has got to go for Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. But, that's just my take on whatever is going to be next for the Starfield franchise, because I do see some good bones in that and a good theme, and Bethesda could make it work if they do have that magic and passion in them. But it's been failing recently, so I'm scared with not even Starfield. I'm scared for Fallout's future. I'm scared for Elder Scrolls' future. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think down below. What did I miss? Is there anything you'd like for Starfield, or what's your thoughts on Bethesda as a whole? Anyways, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and become a member of the Frosty Flames Legion. Join the Legion, become a Legionnaire today. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Love you all. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.